Have you seen Dune Part 2?
I haven't seen it, no.
Are you going to see it?
Probably not, because it's 3 hours, and I don't want to be sat in a cinema for 3 hours.
No, I know. I mean, again, you're so busy. Why would you ever?
I know, yeah, exactly. I don't want to go do that. That sounds like a waste of not only my time, but your time as well, Luke, frankly.
Shall that just be the call?
That's it. That's our review of Dune.
No, I do want to talk about it more, right? So, yeah, well, basically, Dune Part 2 is something that I saw recently. Of course, it's been out for about a month. But, of course, you know me. I had to see it in IMAX.
Yes.
Not just IMAX, 70mm IMAX. What? Yeah, that's me. I see movies in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And also, this is the cherry on top. We sat on the top row, right? So it means we got the best view as well. You know, because you sit in the bottom row when you're watching, you know,
like a pleb.
A movie in IMAX. The screen is so stretched, but the top row, that's the best. And we got it. And oh god, when those worms came out of the sand, and you know it's in IMAX, and you know you got the best view. That's cinema right there. In the movie we're reviewing today, Reality Bites, there's of course, you know, it's a coming of age movie in some respects. Not really, but kind of.
Yeah, it's more of a coming of AIDS movie.
That's a really small plot line. But anyway, yeah, maybe if things aren't working out for you, like the characters in Reality Bites, you should just like join the Fremen, like Paul Atreides does, and he gets his life on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely does.
Yeah, maybe there's a message for us all there. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating nothing. Wait, we're celebrating the 30-year anniversary of the movie Reality Bites, so that's what we're going to be looking at today. Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Reality Bites?
Sure thing, Michael. Of course, yes, it's been 30 years since this movie came out, and you know, it's not a very influential movie. It's not that well-known a movie.
Well, I know it because of the Simpsons episode Realty Bites, which is famously the last episode to feature Lionel Hutz and the first episode to feature Old Gil.
Oh, well, that's a fun fact. But anyway, so yeah, Reality Bites is a 1994 American romantic comedy drama film. Oh, just by the way, why we're doing it is because I think it's just a very interesting movie. And yeah, I think for us especially, Michael, people who are around our age, I guess if you are the same age as the characters in the movie, when you lived, or if you were alive in the early 90s or around today, you know, we're a bit older. But yeah, it is a very interesting movie just to examine it. And, you know, I thought that looking at the synopsis, and I was like, well, we're going to review this 30-year anniversary. And yeah, I'm glad I'm glad I made that decision, you know, because I make all the right decisions. And this was another correct decision from me. But anyway, so let's get into it. It was a film written by Helen Childress and directed by Ben Stiller in his feature directorial debut. I don't know if you know that, but he directed that. So, you know, that's interesting. It stars Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, Ben Stiller, Janine Garofalo, Swoosie Kurtz, Joe Don Baker, and John Mahoney. I don't know why I said it like that. It was John Mahoney. It was released on February the 18th, 1994. So yeah, we're a month and a bit away from its 30-year anniversary. But yeah, Michael, can you tell me what the budget was for Reality Bites?
Well, I feel like it must have been pretty cheap. I'm going to go for... this could be wrong. I will say, I'll confess, I don't know how famous any of the actors were at the point when they were in this film. Obviously, a lot of them are famous now.
Well, I think Winona Ryder was like a child actor.
Yeah, because Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
I think. Maybe I'm getting confused, but Ethan Hawke was kind of well known.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of his early work, but I guess you're giving me some indication there. They were pretty well known. So I was going to say 5 million, but because you've given an indication they're kind of well known, based on that, I'm going to say 10 million. Yeah,
that's a good guess. Well done. It's 11.5.
Good.
So yeah, you would have been less than half if, you know, I didn't give you those clues. So
yeah.
Well done for picking up what I was putting down there, Michael. And can you tell me what the box office was? I'm not going to give you any clues for it.
Okay. I was going to try and truffle out some clues.
No, I'm just going to watch you fail.
Okay, so I'm going
to be like Ethan Hawke. I'm just going to, you know, sit on the sidelines, knowing all the answers, watching you fail.
I'm going to be the guy who has to go and actually get out there and earn that bread, Ben Stiller.
And then get cooked.
Yeah, so I'm thinking to myself, between like a bad score and a kind of more blockbuster score, I'm thinking like 50 million.
Oh, good guess. I thought you were going to go higher based on your description, but no.
Well, I was in my head. I was thinking like an indie score was like 0, and a blockbuster score was 100. Okay. So I was like, in between is 50 million.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, you're close because the correct answer is 41. So yeah,
Aha.
no, that was better than I thought. Anyway, Michael, did you like Reality Bites?
I found myself quite confused by this film for one reason. So here's the thing: I had a lot of. All right, I liked this movie. I think the kind of stuff it deals with and the kind of theme of like dealing with entering reality is a good theme that the movie does a good job exploring. The one thing is, I didn't really like the characters, which is fine. You don't have to like the characters, but, and I don't know when I'm going to get on to saying this because I don't want to say it now. I want to save it a bit to titillate people. But the direction the movie ended up going in gave me a profound sense of whiplash because it was not what I was expecting, and I massively misread the direction the movie was taking.
Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah, so I liked it, but it's kind of the weirdest sensation I've had watching the movie, or the least able I felt to kind of think in terms of liking it or not, because I was just like, oh, really? That's where it's going. Okay. Like, I was more shocked. You know, it's like asking me how I'd feel about a surprise birthday party. I'd hate it because it would shock me. Anyway, so, but yeah, I think there is definitely stuff to appreciate in the movie. What do you think?
Thank you for that. Yeah, the thing is, yeah, I'm not really surprised at the ending, because this is a Gen X movie.
Yeah, so I forget that like there was once a time when everyone liked getting cucked.
Okay, yeah, right. The thing is, okay, I have, like, the question, did you like this movie? You know, it's normally pretty simple to answer. And for me, this is, like, the most complicated this question has ever been.
Oh, so it's interesting that we are, you know, we're real bum buddies here, aren't we? Assuming bum buddies is with reference to, assuming that phrase, which I've never heard of before, is with reference to being equally bummed by our inability to accurately assess a movie or objectively assess a movie.
No, my issue is different to yours.
Yeah, this is interesting. Well, you know, I'm glad. Well, either way, look, at the end of the day, in any kind of bum buddy relationship, there's going to be a diversity to how you arrived at it. I don't know why. It's not really anything to do with being bummed.
Yeah,
although I suppose no, what it's we're bum buddies because the movie's kind of about characters who are sort of bums, like they're bumming around a lot. So in that sense, we're bum buddies. But yeah, it's interesting that both, because like I was like,
do you want to let me tell you what it is?
No, I don't want to. Okay, no, tell me.
Okay, I started talking about it, and then
I just got so excited by the fact we agreed on that.
Okay, so I did like this movie somewhat. It is a watchable movie. It is enjoyable. You know, the characters they're a bit too stereotypical sometimes, and the dialogue is a bit too stereotypical. You know, just arguments between one generational perspective and another spelled out, and it's very literal sometimes. I did kind of like it, but also like I was annoyed by the contents of the movie quite a bit, because a lot of this movie focuses on how hard it is for Generation X growing up in the early 1990s. You know, just how hard it is basically to live. You know, the rent is due. You know, the job opportunities are low. You know, they don't have the same security as their parents, and they don't want to sell out. You know, and
these are the challenges they face, Luke.
Yeah, I know. It ain't easy, basically, living in the early 90s, you know, as a young adult in a Western country such as America.
Yes.
And yeah,
it's like Bill Clinton said famously in the 90s. It's the economy that's stupid because of how bad it is. Remember he said that?
Again, and so basically a lot of that's the vibe of the movie. You know, oh, how tough do these kids have it? And that it's true compared to previous generations, but again, compared to our generation today, we have it a lot worse.
Yeah. Would you say Generation X needs to X their privilege?
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, when they were making this movie at the time, they're like, wow, Western standards of living have really decreased in the last few decades. This is quite bad for us. And the trend's just continued.
So basically, the movies become worse or like weirder in hindsight. Well,
I don't want to say it's aged poorly, because it is like a time capsule of that time. That's what it's trying to be. So, you can't really, I mean, we'll get into that in a bit. But the thing is, for me, from my perspective, whether I liked it, I was like, I think it's, again, well made, but I was kind of raging at the movie for these characters, being so downtrodden when I'm like, you're not really downtrodden compared to today. So yeah, there's a flip side to that, which is also at the same time, I'm like, thank you for giving me an outlet to rage, because when fucking Winona Ryder's character says, oh, I'm only on $400 a week in the early 1990s, I calculated that's about $21,000 per year.
Yeah,
that is a decent wage for someone in their early 20s working in the field that they want to work in.
Yeah.
Around that time, I think, judging by my knowledge of inflation and everything, and therefore I'm like, oh my god, shut the fuck up. But then I'm like, thank you for because you've given me an outlet to be angry.
It's what I call in the business rage porn.
Yeah, I am angry at the state of the world that we now live in the year 2024, 30 years later. And so therefore, seeing how, should I be complaining? Should I be angry? Well, yes, because in 1994, these characters who are meant to be typical for the time, who are around our age, were complaining about a situation which was a lot better, honestly. And we will get into how it was a lot better than nowadays. But yeah, so basically that's it. I kind of was angry. I wasn't like frothing at the mouth or whatever, but I was annoyed.
Would you say you were triggered?
Yeah, I was very triggered.
This is a safe space, and you can admit that you were a bit triggered.
I was very triggered, like a true Zoomer.
Yes,
but that's the thing. I appreciate the movie being an outlet. It's like it's what's that word beginning with V?
Vindicating.
There we go. Well done, Michael. Yeah, I feel vindicated for being angry about the world because of how things are portrayed in this movie. So anyway, go on. What were you going to say?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that, I kind of mentioned that some of the characters I disliked, and one of the reasons for that is there are some moments that I would consider to be kind of petulant, and I think it makes sense to view that as, well, obviously, if they're complaining about all this stuff, and one of those things is actually quite early on in the film, so we'll probably get into it in a moment, so I might as well just wait until we get onto that.
Yeah. Again, the biggest complaint, I think, in general is... and this is, I think, the real sticking point that younger generations have with Gen X is the whole not selling out philosophy, which is just very funny to look back on. Where, again, Winona Ryder has her movie, even though it's edited quite a lot. She is the director of this movie, which is airing, I think, on a national network.
Yeah.
And okay, it's not perfect, but it's pretty. That's pretty good. And yeah. She's 23, she's unemployed, and that is just an incredible opportunity for her, and she couldn't hate it more.
Yeah, I believe the expression is she looks a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So again, that I think is an obvious complaint to make compared to before. But I'm just talking in general, just the living standards as well. Again, we'll get into it. But anyway, Michael, how many nitpicks do you have?
Oh, I didn't actually have any nitpicks.
Oh, well, neither have I. So.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. This movie's a bit hard to nitpick. It's not so fantastical as to really have any viable nitpicks.
Yeah. You should stop complaining about your situation.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'll nitpick their philosophy.
Yeah, you don't know how bad it's going to be 30 years later. So there you go. That's my nitpick.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's just read the plot. So a documentary filmmaker and her fellow Gen X graduates face life after college, looking for work and love in Houston. Did you know it's set in Houston, by the way?
No, although obviously I know that there's someone who takes a plane to Chicago. So I would have assumed the whole time I was assuming LA.
Yeah. No.
But yeah.
Yeah. Lelena focuses on the disenchanted lives of her friends and roommates. Yes, that's what she does with her documentary. And yeah, of course, this is meant to capture the lives of, the youth or the, young adults, I guess, who have graduated college, in society at the time. So yeah, it naturally ages, of course. But then again, it is interesting to look back on and, contrast to today. Of course, and that is what I've been complaining. You know what? That's the thing. I enjoy complaining about how hard it is today. I like doing that because it makes me feel better about my life. The fact that, everything is, not as good as it could be. And that's not my fault.
You know what, Luke? I think it's okay to enjoy complaining. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Sometimes I think people who get really upset at other people complaining are actually the negative ones. I think it's better to enjoy complaining instead of feeling the need for everything to always be perfect. That's my personal philosophy of life. So
it's nice to complain now and again, and this movie gives me an excuse to do that. Of course, these people in this movie, they're 23, I think. Winona Ryder's character is 23. 23, 24, whatever. And I was thinking, and they're not having, the movie focuses on how hard it is for a lot of the characters. I just thought, well, do you know what was going on in our lives when we were 23 and 24?
Oh, yeah, we all know what was going on in our lives.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm thinking, right?
I assume COVID. I was trying to think of something that was like not very significant, so I could think of that, but I couldn't think of anything from. We all know what was going on in our lives. England got beat by Italy in the Euro finals.
Liverpool won the Premier League.
Although that's terrible.
It was a COVID title, so does it really count?
No.
Yeah, no, exactly no. The thing is, we had a global pandemic. Like these years of like, they're looking for love and work in Houston and everything, and they're hanging out together, and everybody who was our age when we were the same age as the characters in the movie, again around the same age, we were like isolated, and if we tried to do something, like go to the pub or go to a party, we could have been arrested.
Yes.
Which I don't think Troy, Ethan Hawke's character, would be very happy about that, would he?
Oh yeah, he would die from COVID.
Well, I don't think he'd die. He'd get fined a lot. I mean, I don't know what the laws were like in Texas during COVID. Probably a bit more lax than in the UK.
Yeah. What if this was set in Florida? Then it would have been it wouldn't have been any different.
No, but DeSantis did lock down, and that's the thing. He's a hypocrite.
Oh, did he? Okay, I assumed that he was consistent.
You moron! You're taking like Republicans at their word.
I know.
Come on.
I thought they were going to make America great again.
Yeah, I know. The thing is, that's what I could think of. Like, okay, how old are they in the movie? 23, 24. Oh, what was I doing when I was 23 and 24? Yes,
there is a direct frame of reference that contradicts their belly aching, I think is the contemporary expression.
Their belly aching. Their belly aching has got nothing on my belly aching. Nothing. Yes. And, of course, what that did to the economy, not good. Not good. Made everything very expensive as well. Not good. Yeah, just generally like the worst thing that could possibly happen to society, apart from a war.
Yes.
But luckily we'd live in a nice Western country, so that won't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a joke or not because of what's happening in Ukraine.
I feel like, in a way, it kind of speaks to our privilege that the worst thing about a war is just that our government decides to use it as an opportunity to give loads of taxpayer money to military contractors.
Yeah, no, I guess so. But
like,
also,
we don't have to die. We just have to complain about the fact that we can't get some dank, cheap Russian gas because we've decided to sanction them. Like, I want free Russian gas. I
would love some free. I'd like some cheaper fuel.
Yeah.
I would like that. And again, I can't imagine how cheap fucking petrol was in the early 1990s in Texas compared to oh my god.
Yeah.
It makes me seethe.
That's because they were trading with Russia then. Everything was better.
Yeah. They just started trading with Russia. Yeah. Right. So anyway, again, that's the thing. I'm complaining about the content of this movie, but it's good to complain. I like it, So again, it's not just because we're shitting on this movie or not doesn't mean we dislike it. So again, it's a very weird dynamic here, but that is the dynamic. So on Rotten Tomatoes, the site's consensus states Reality Bites may be too slick to fulfill its promise as a profound statement on Generation X. I don't know if it's too slick. I mean it's pretty obvious, like what it's trying to do. That you have a love triangle, of course, and one of the characters is, like a suit, and the other character is, like a slacker. And which way will Winona Ryder go? Will she, which way will Generation X go? Like which way, is she going to go down the path of, selling out man? Or is she going to, stick it to the man? Yeah. And yeah, again, she's like, an avatar for Gen X, I guess, in that respect. Yes. But yeah.
My dad's technically part of Generation X.
That's great. Well, congrats to him.
Yeah. My mum's not because she's older than him. My mum's a boomer. My dad's Generation X. It's a miracle they made it work.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like for us, again, it doesn't really matter because again, like, are we millennials? Are we Zoomers? Well, we have more in common because we're close to the boundaries.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's the boundaries. Those boundaries will get you. It's almost like it wasn't like human reproduction wasn't designed to have distinct generations for each, cultural, like in specific cultural moments.
They should do what the Vulcans do in Star Trek: breed once every 7 years.
Honestly, that would be so much better.
And then we can actually have generations, like definitive generations.
Yeah, that would be great.
And until then, no, we can't have that. So let's talk about the production, Michael. So how do you think this movie got started, basically?
I'm imagine it started with a dream, with a vision.
Yeah, so in 1991, producer Michael Schamberg had an idea to make a film about people in their 20s. So I just love that on Wikipedia. It's like, how about a movie like Star Wars or The Matrix? Now, how about a movie about people in their 20s?
Yeah,
Wow.
Luke Skywalker was in his 20s, but he had a slightly different coming-of-age story.
Yeah, good point, yeah. And I guess, so did Neo, I think he may have been in his 20s. So, Gen X is such an unusual, weird generation, Mike, so we have to make a movie about them. Schamberg read a screenplay written by Helen Childress. He liked it and met with her, and she told him about her life and friends and their struggle to find work during a recession in the US. Damn, that early 1990s recession, man, what a disaster.
It doesn't get worse than that.
Imagine growing up and facing that recession, that well-known early 90s recession. Damn, I wonder if there has ever been a worse recession since then, which completely crippled the economy for literally, since then, like a decade and a half after. Like, imagine if the effects, the reverberations of that recession were still ongoing, and imagine in the midst of that there was another recession caused by a global pandemic. Imagine that. God.
Yeah, I'm struggling to.
Take me back to when these were the problems, Like, this thing, it's like I have an envious nostalgia, for this time period. I don't know. I think that's maybe the best way to describe it. Like, even the little things, Michael, right? Like, they're mocking, there's this drink called the Big Gulp Shake or whatever it's called. You know that drink that they drink at some point in the movie?
Yes.
Ben Stiller and Winona Ryder? And it's like, imagine like having cheap fast food, Like, it's the little things. Like, everything is so expensive nowadays. Fast food is expensive. Fucking food is expensive. Everything's expensive. They didn't know how good they had it, basically, Michael.
No, yeah.
And I think I've said that a few times. So in his review for the Washington Post, Desson Howe wrote, by aiming specifically and accurately at characters in their 20s, screenwriter Helen Childress and first-time director Stiller achieved something even greater. They encapsulate an era. We weren't alive at this time period. So yeah, do you think it does encapsulate this era, Michael? Because I don't really know. What do you think?
I don't know. Yeah, see, it's an interesting thing because it's sort of like the problem is, and yeah, like you say, you have slightly hinted at this already. The 1990s is now remembered as a boom period and a period that was generally carefree, where everything was fine. So in that sense, it works as a time capsule if you're aware that the people at the time had no idea how good they had it. But from the perspective of somebody in 2020, you wouldn't be like, I want to watch a classic 90s movie, like a movie about the 90s. You wouldn't pick this movie because this movie feels wrong.
Well, everything is so hard, basically.
Exactly, yeah. Like, this movie is a very negative depiction.
And, of course, in the late 90s, when the economy got a lot better, and then you saw, of course, a lot of movies, and we talked about one, The Matrix, about how, wow, life is so dull, We have these nice houses, nice cars, but are we really living?
Yeah, like you have the kind of, obviously, Fight Club and all that kind of stuff, which is something everyone talks about in the 90s. But yeah, like you said, that was the point where I was like, everything's great, but it's like hollow and meaningless, which is a kind of different message.
So, that's the thing. If these characters just stuck it out for a few more years, the economy got a lot better. Oh yeah, you probably have some nice jobs and things are going well.
They could have got successful enough to become depressed about the meaninglessness of their own success.
Yeah, and I'd just like to get to that stage where, like, I could be depressed about the meaninglessness of my success. But still, we're still getting there. That is a grind. That's my life goal, to be like one of those characters in a late 90s movie. And maybe one day I'll achieve that. I think you kind of yearn for the world Reality Bites is in. So yeah, you're right. It does kind of encapsulate an era, but that era was very brief. And if you're talking about the overall 90s era, it doesn't really fit in because, again, things were a lot better. Because, again, after the year 2000, what did you have? Like 9/11, the Iraq War, and all, the war on terror, all of that stuff. Then the financial crash, and then when things start to get better, you have, social media, which has just changed our world dramatically. Then fucking COVID a few years later. It hasn't been a good run, really, in the last 20 years, I think it's fair to say. 20, 25 years. Things haven't gone so well. And yeah, I don't think we're going to turn a corner anytime soon.
No, well, to be fair, actually, in the UK, we should mention there is an election coming out where there's some pretty radical change on the cards from the opposition parties, so I am quite optimistic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to voting for a white prime minister again.
Yeah, finally, about time.
Finally. No, just not just a white prime minister, white and male.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about Boris.
He's also married to a Jewish person who is the and they're like the most privileged minority.
Wait, who's married? Starmer's married to a Jewish person.
I think so, or maybe that's just.
I don't think that's right.
That could be something I just it could be something I just heard some angry Arabs shouting at him.
Yeah, no, I think you've been on some bad forums there, pal. Maybe you're right, but I have never heard that before.
Okay.
So,
well, I suppose the one thing is obviously Starmer does like to. He is a cuck. So even though obviously he'll be white, the bull in his polyamorous relationship won't be.
The thing is, I'm pretty sure Starmer's wife isn't Jewish, because I know if she was Jewish, then the media would say, well,
they would mention it all the time. Yeah.
Well, they would say the left attacking Keir Starmer for his stance on Israel feels a bit anti-Semitic because of his wife. They would have definitely used that angle, and they haven't. So that leads me to believe she's not Jewish. But anyway, so by the way, do you know what the title refers to, Michael?
Well, look, I would assume that this is my inference that how like people used to say like bites, like, oh man, this bites, as like a negative thing, and then obviously reality, because it's saying, oh man, reality bites. Like I guess just saying like, oh, reality sucks. That's what I've always assumed it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more to it than that?
According to Childress, the title of the film isn't meant to be interpreted as reality sucks.
So it looks like I'm an idiot. How embarrassing for me.
During the run-up to the 1992 US election, Childress kept hearing references to sound bites, which made her think of Lolana's recorded vignettes of her friends as little bites of reality.
Reality. Okay, that does make sense. So obviously, it's about the documentary format.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it has a cleverer meaning than just reality sucks. So let's get into this movie now. So 4 friends, recent college graduates, live together in Houston, Texas. The focus, of course, is on coffee house guitarist Troy Dyer and budding filmmaker Lolana Pierce. What a weird name, by the way, Lolana.
I was thinking that. Wait, am I not crazy, or did they not call her like Leilana? Or like maybe I'm getting people confused, but I swear there's like someone who they constantly call like Lainey or Lay.
Yeah, Troy calls her Lainey.
Yes,
which is his pet name for her. Which that if you have a name for a girl like that, then obviously
you're going to be laying some major pipe.
Yeah, was that a pun?
Oh no! Like, I mean, yeah, I guess actually, yeah, that's a good point. You'll be laning some major pipe.
There we go. Yeah, I was like, it sounds like a pun, but he didn't fully commit to it. So
just like he didn't fully commit to her.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, right. There's this opening video of them on the rooftop. Okay, after they've just graduated. I don't know how they got onto this rooftop. Like
I was thinking that too. Yeah, it seems pretty inaccessible.
I know, and it seems like pretty dangerous as well. And the thing is, you're like, oh well, their kids having so like I don't know. I wouldn't like. There are other places to like drink and smoke, like anywhere else, basically.
Yes.
Apart from like a very high building with, where it looks like you could just fall off the side. I don't know. Doesn't seem like the smartest thing to do. But whatever. Again, it's a, it shows, I guess, that maybe they're on top of the world because they just graduated from college, and they feel like, oh yeah, we can do anything, man. Oh, this is great. Maybe that's the metaphorical meaning of it. But yeah, I just thought, why are they on top of a fucking like office building? But anyway, all the people in the film at the start, they're annoying, right? And the movie is trying to show that they're annoying, right?
Well, so do you think that the movie's trying to show that they're annoying?
I fucking hope so.
Oh, see, I don't know about that. I kind of thought I would not be so confident. I agree with you. I mean, I would say at the start, like the very start, I was mostly like, oh, they're kind of. Like I didn't dislike them immediately. I think we're close enough now.
When they're on the rooftop, I dislike them.
Okay, see, I don't remember disliking them when they're on the rooftop.
I just thought, oh, these people are so fucking annoying.
They're like kind of artsy fartsy, aren't they? Like like, hey man, dude. So
witty, so like, funny without actually being funny.
Yeah. They're the kind of they act the kind of way that would make a very bitter person dislike them.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
You
the thing is, so what I would say is, just to progress things forward, but not too much, because I think this is like pretty much the next scene. It might not be, in which case feel free to backtrack. But the scene where they've kind of already graduated, but she gets the BMW from her dad, and he gives her a card where basically he's saying like he'll pay for her gas for a year, which obviously, like you say, gas barely cost any money back then. But
good point.
The she responds to it like negatively, not just like ungratefully, but as if like her dad's a dick for giving her that present. And at that point I was like, okay, that's quite unlikable. Like if
Well,
my sister,
Wait.
she basically got a new car, and her old car was like so kind of battered about that she couldn't really sell it anyway. But nonetheless, she gave it to me for free. And I'm like very thankful for that. But yeah, so to see someone be like, "Oh, you got me a car, you fucking asshole," I'm like, wow, okay.
Wait, can you drive, by the way?
I can drive.
You can, good.
Yeah, not necessarily well, but I
When
can
did
legally drive.
Sorry, when did you pass your driving test? Because I don't.
I passed my driving test. You should remember this, Luke. Maybe you were so drunk already before you came to see me.
Oh, you did, yeah.
But
No, I wasn't.
if you remember, my headlight was broken. And I remember when I passed my test because I basically passed my test because at one point the person who was testing me literally told me that there was an obstacle coming up because I hadn't noticed it. And then you were like, "Wow, Michael, this is embarrassing. You should not admit that."
That is embarrassing. Right. So, well, let's talk about when Lelena was valedictorian of her university, because at the start of the movie she's giving this speech, and she says she doesn't know basically how to not act like their boomer parents or pre-boom. Like, I don't know how old their parents are in terms of what generation they are, but
greatest generation.
Yeah, well, would it be the greatest?
No, I think the greatest generation fought in World War II. So.
Yes, it would be the silent generation, which I think is pre the end of World War II. And it's possible her parents were born before 1945. But I don't know. Let's just say boomer. Because,
I'm going to find out who the actors are who played her parents and assume that they're going to be the same age. Don't worry, I'll find this out.
You don't need to. But anyway,
I will.
The thing is, the point is, like, they hate the generation above them, right? They don't want to be them, and they want to avoid being them, And again, it's quite on the nose, honestly. Like, oh, how do we stop being like our parents? Oh, the cue card that I had is now gone. Oh, and the thing is, of course, you also talked about the fact that she rejects the gas card that she got from her dad. Makes you boil with anger, and like the thing is, it's fine to want to have a nice life. It's fine to own nice stuff, and it's fine to have a nice new car. It doesn't mean you're selling out.
It's like, you know what it is actually, Luke. This is what it is. It's asceticism. Do you know what asceticism is?
Well, I can guess, but go on.
Yeah, it's basically the idea that like it's more virtuous to just unnecessarily suffer.
Yes,
which is like, because that's the thing, it's unnecessary. It doesn't benefit anyone.
Yeah, I know. It's like, we know what actual suffering is. That's the difference.
Yes.
Like this generation. Again, compared to the context of the world, we have it a lot better. But you know what I'm talking about. Like in rich Western countries, the standard of living is declining, which has never happened before, but it's happened to our generation the first time in fucking history. That's great. The thing is, that's one reason why I dislike Gen X. The other reason is what Gen X turned into, because they did turn into their parents. Like, and the thing is, like, they became actually worse because, at least their parents rebelled against, well, some of them, of course, like, like authority in general. That was, of course,
like in the 60s.
Yes, that was one of the things that the boomers apparently did, to give them a bit of credit, rebel against the establishment.
They worked out racism was bad.
Yes, like, obviously, you had the sexual liberation, you had like race relations, a lot of stuff changed in the 60s and 70s, and then in the 90s, like what changed? It was apolitical.
They rebelled against vibes.
Yeah, it was like an apolitical rebelling. What has happened to Gen X is they've become the worst generation. They've become worse than their parents. Because I think about Ethan Hawke's character today, he'd probably be like an anti-vaxxer. That's the path that Gen X have gone down in terms of rebelling. They rebel against like fucking vaccines. They rebel against, like, I don't know, like.
Yeah, I bet they're all libertarians.
Yeah, exactly. It is this like libertarian mindset in general, because the thing is, it's like, I don't need any help. I want to do this on my own. I'm pure. And that can lead to some unfortunate I think political realities. And I think you look at Gen X, they are the biggest bloc who support, for instance, Donald Trump. More than the boomers, honestly, and that may just be because of Biden, because he's quite old and the boomers like him. But if you look at the UK, like Generation X they were massive supporters of Margaret Thatcher, when they were young. So this generation is like the worst generation. So anyway, let's talk about. So what have I been saying about this movie so far, Michael? My feelings on it?
Well, I think vaguely you've kind of given a slight indication that one of your problems is that there is a dissonance between the mopey attitude of the main characters and how good in reality the 1990s was.
Yeah, so that is what I've said so far. And the next subheading for my paragraph, my next paragraph,
Good.
is just titled Rage.
Good.
Yeah, God. Right, so, yeah, we're still going. Lelena has aspirations to become a documentarian, although initially has to settle for a position as production...
Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. Production assistant to a rude and obnoxious TV host. Oh,
Yeah.
you have to settle for that?
That's so sad.
No. Oh, wow. Oh, I hate this movie. But I hate it, and I love it for, it makes me feel vindicated, like you say. It makes me realise, yes, things were a lot better back in the day. So yeah, she was making, again, I said, about 21 grand a year in 1994. Do some inflation, you like to look up stuff, Michael. Do some inflation.
Yeah. Inflation calculator.
21 grand. Again, this is...
Oh, by the way, her dad was born in 1936, so silent
Right.
generation.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got Bank of England. Let's do it specific for the USD.
Well, obviously do it for the because she's fucking earning dollars. Yeah. So what's 21,000 in 1994 compared to today?
44,000.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. So $43,973.32.
I did not.
So if in 1994 I purchased an item for, but that's neither here nor there. I purchased an item for $21,000. In 2024, that same item would cost $43,973.
That is a lot of money in 1994. 21,000 a year after you've just come out of college. And I don't think the rents in Houston would have been that high. I suspect not. So yeah, again,
Texas is crazy cheap. When I was in America recently, there were loads of like home makeover shows and they were all set in Texas, and literally every single one started with like, we bought this house for $10, and it's a giant McMansion. By the way, so I've checked across 2 other sites, and every single one is bringing up the same results, so $44,000.
So that is a significant amount.
Would you be content with earning $44,000 a year, or would you be complaining about it?
$44,000 a year.
Yeah, and you got to bear in mind that while you are working in the industry that you are passionate in, you're not quite doing exactly what you want to do, and your boss is kind of a jerk. So, if you've actually considered that, maybe it's kind of hell on earth.
Exactly. Just fucking put up with him. Just, like...
like that. Yeah, I was thinking that. And also the thing is, it's kind of weird because he's kind of a jerk later on. But the first thing you see is him being fine, and she's like mean about him. Like she says, like, "Oh, it's so cheesy, Bob."
The first, he is, but he is mad at her for forgetting his coffee. I think that's it. But that's the thing. Like, well, she didn't do her job properly there, so
it's like, oh man, what? There's a catch. You have a job that pays $44,000, but Luke, there is a catch you might not have considered. You have to do the job.
Yeah, it's like it's not a big deal, but he was mad at you. Well, you did fuck up. Again, it is an overreaction from here. But again, do you know what you should do in that position when you have like this TV host? You shouldn't be, annoying. You should suck up to him. You should not argue with him because he is powerful.
I'm sorry, suck up or sell out.
Exactly. Jesus Christ. And that's the thing. I don't know if you would even have to suck up to her. To him, because again, she's at various times she's just clearly annoyed by him. It is.
I want to. At least she's not working at Nickelodeon for Dan Schneider. Am I right, guys?
Yeah. Again, well, that could happen. Again, he's just pissed off with that. I get it, and she's her first job out of college. It pays well. She's in the right field. She's got access to good connections potentially. I mean, things are going good, but she's still not satisfied because she doesn't have it all right away because she's so entitled because this generation is the worst. Anyway, so Ethan Hawke then crashes at her place, and because he got fired because he was too busy sticking it to the man. Obviously, I love this line, Michael. I love this line. I don't know if you caught this, but do you know what Lelena says after? So Lelena's friend, her roommate, says, Troy is crashing here until he saves up enough to find his own place. And do you know what her response is to that?
Oh, I can't quite remember.
All right. Well, she says, Lelena, that's the American dream of the 90s. That could take years.
I know, yeah, that's quite funny.
Oh, it could take years, could it? How about fucking never?
Yeah.
No, look, if you could just, on minimum wage jobs, which apparently, this is what Troy does all day, just save up for years on minimum wage and eventually buy a house. Yeah, that's the American dream, all right. And that today the housing situations are different compared to different states and different countries, but in general, housing across the Western world has gone up significantly in price. And it would be great if you could just work like a normal job, especially in this country, like for 4 years. Now, I'm not saying like 4 years, just, for several years, whatever.
Yes, for a number of years.
Yes, and be confident that you are guaranteed to get a house. And yeah, apparently that is an awful situation to be in the 90s, because you can't just buy a house right away. Again, it's worse than her parents, absolutely, but oh god, it's still so much better than today. Like that's the line which maybe enraged me the most. The housing market is completely fucked across the world. Well, the Western world again.
China's doing well.
Do you echo my sentiments here, Mike?
Yes, I do echo your sentiments. Yeah, obviously it's crazy. And houses would have been like cheap back then as well. That's the other thing. Like I feel like house prices, they've really gone through the roof, and wages haven't.
That's what I've been saying for the last 5
Well,
minutes.
okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were just talking because obviously we've established that the wages were much higher. But yeah, I'm just saying as well, which I guess
Well, yeah, I mean
that's why.
Yeah, it's inflation, isn't it? Like, yeah. And yeah, I do like the scene where she goes into the Gap store and she sees all of those denim clothes. You know, it tries to capture the culture of the time. And again, that's one of the good things about movies that try to do that, because then you can laugh at how, all these things that were cool back in the day now aren't cool. Like the Gap.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Like, whenever I think about the Gap, I only think about in that song White and Nerdy, where it's like they're having a sale down at the Gap, something about my fanny pack.
Okay. The thing is as well, everyone's parents got divorced as well.
Oh yeah, that's it. Well, that's the whole Good Will Hunting thing, right? Like, the worst thing that happens to you is that your parents get divorced. Like, that's what he says about that guy.
Every Gen X, kid, their parents got divorced apparently, or their parents.
Nice work, Reagan. Way to bring back traditional values.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Where no fault divorce happened like in the early 70s in the US. That became legal, so yeah, there was a ton of divorces, I guess, and yeah, now it's the worst thing ever. Like, oh god, how can I recover? Again, like obviously it can be pretty bad, especially Troy's dad is dying. So that's pretty bad, obviously. But yeah, like it's not the worst thing in the world. It's, you should be able to move on from that. And if you can't get therapy, you can probably afford it, earning $44,000 a year. I'm not sure how much therapists cost, but they were probably cheaper as well, because everything was. So Lalina meets Michael Grates when throwing a lit cigarette into his convertible. Again, this is her character arc, what she thinks of guys like him, and then she almost turns into someone like him, And yeah, they soon, of course, begin to date. He works as an executive at an MTV-like channel called In Your Face, which I love that, man. That's so 90s. Like, In Your Face. Yeah, that's great. I like that. That really does capture the essence of the 90s, appealing to youth culture. Yeah, it's in your face. Yeah.
Yeah, like I do associate like MTV with the 90s, definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like Eminem, of course, he was massive on MTV, but that was early 2000s.
Yeah, well, they tried to shut him down on MTV, but it would feel so empty without me.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, that's when I think of the 90s, I think of that. And yeah, will Lelena end up with the suit, the guy who was sold out, or will she end up with the stoner guy who says, fuck the establishment, and then he was just the biggest stereotype possible of someone of a Gen X person. Which way, early 90s Gen X girl, which way will you go? And again, she's like an avatar for Gen X on the whole, isn't she?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and I guess it's an interesting idea for a love triangle, right?
Yeah, it is. Like, obviously, the thing that you kind of pick up right away, as you kind of already alluded to, is that they represent two different personalities, two different ways of living. I mean, yuppies, I guess, were kind of from the 80s, famously, so I guess also this functions as a kind of transitional thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the word yuppie clearly hadn't fallen out of favour in the early 90s, and I wouldn't expect it to, but yeah, that is more an 80s kind of thing. But yeah, the thing is, like, Ben Stiller's character, like, he still doesn't want to be a sellout, that's the thing. And in some ways that's good, because it makes his character, like, feel more real, that he's not just, like, a stereotype, like Ethan Hawke's is, to be honest. So that makes him feel real and better. But also, it makes me think, well, even, like, the guy who sold out doesn't really want to sell out,
Yeah, like, I mean, the real issue, and let's all, let's all just admit it right now, Ben Stiller, his character, seems like a perfectly nice guy. Like, I don't know, I mean, the thing is, I don't want to jump ahead, but, like, even the big sellout moments that I guess really turns her off him, it seems like he didn't have anything to do with it. Like, So obviously I was talking about
Well,
that, which I guess we'll touch on later. But basically he really doesn't come across very sellouty at all.
Well, he could just be lying, honestly.
Yeah, he could be lying, but the thing is, he's not like he's no Patrick Bateman.
No, yeah, you're right. But again, I like that because it makes the character more believable. So that's good. But also, it's like, oh yeah, even the sellout guy is like, on board with the philosophy of Troy. He just wants to live in the real world. Not that he completely rejects the philosophy at all. So yeah, I'm on the fence whether it's better that his character is more three-dimensional, I guess. But anyway, Stiller, let's talk about him, because Childress at first figured out the characters of Lelena and Troy, but could not come up with a character to complete the love triangle, which is interesting again, because obviously the love triangle is symbolic for Gen X in a way. So it's interesting that change of adding Stiller really made it better. Stiller suggested that he could play the third person. As a result, the Michael character changed from a 35-year-old advertising executive trying to market Japanese candy bars in America
yes.
To a television executive in his 20s. And again, he's done pretty well to be that in his 20s, honestly.
Yeah. That's almost as good as your directorial debut being in your 20s. I don't know if he was actually in his 20s when this movie came out. Oh, no, he was just in his 20s. He was born in 1965, so he obviously would have been 29 in 1994. Yeah,
maybe when he directed it, he was 28, but yeah. So
directing a movie in your 20s, Ben Stiller, life imitates art.
Yeah, again, yeah. So you had opportunities in the 90s and the 80s to direct movies when you were like 28, 27. I know Paul Thomas Anderson, when he directed Boogie Nights, he was 27. And that kind of thing just seems today just so unrealistic, especially if you're not from a wealthy background, again, in terms of that particular industry. But yeah, I don't know what Ben Stiller's background is in general, or what his background is even in this movie. But yeah, they also changed the structure of the film with this Ben Stiller character. So originally, Vicky, Sammy, and Troy had more fleshed out storylines, but Stiller felt that he could not tell them fully and decided to focus on the relationship between Lana and Troy. And again, that's probably the right move. You focus on the central characters more. Yeah, that's probably better, right?
Yeah. I'm with you. I think that makes sense. And at the end of the day, this film it could have been longer. Like obviously, it's only an hour and 40 minutes. But I'm happy it was short, and I don't think I would have liked it if it were longer.
Yeah. I mean, it feels the right length of time. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we know about Gen X's short attention spans. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this was, it would have been like, hey, this isn't Ren and Stimpy.
Okay. Right. So Lelena's roommate Vicky has not a serious one night stand, has a series of one night stands.
What a slut! I hope she gets AIDS and dies
with dozens of men. Her promiscuity leads her to face a very real risk of contracting HIV after a former fling tests positive for the virus. Well, Michael, you got your wish.
Yes, I know. Yeah, thank you. It turns out there is justice in the world.
Well, she doesn't actually get AIDS, of course. So, yeah, shame. This is the one area. Okay, so I've complained a lot about how things in the early 90s were so much better than today, and these people should feel thankful they didn't grow up, and their early 20s weren't in the say the early 2020s, for instance, instead of the early 1990s. But man, this was the area where I'm like, oh yeah, it's absolutely worse than the 90s today. Like I said to you before, recording, it's just so mad. Like, oh yeah, you could get AIDS, like a disease that could kill you without a cure, after having like casual sex, and then that was a real risk, especially
like that would really ruin the sex. I think like getting AIDS. Personally, I think it would make it worse.
Well, I guess you wouldn't know in the moment.
That's true. Yeah,
but I guess you would probably.
It's
regret.
Like, wait, why do I hear boss music? It's like you just hear like a drop.
Yeah, that was very bad, and it's crazy to think about really compared to today. So yeah, that's, of course you can still get AIDS today. I'm not saying people don't get AIDS and don't die of AIDS, but it's a lot.
Like I think they've kind of worked out more cures for it. You can live with AIDS now, and all you have to do is just put up with the fact you're going to have to tell every single person you ever hook up with that you have AIDS. Yeah,
but that's better than dying.
That's true, yeah. So we can't complain, otherwise we will become the petulant, man babies this film portrays.
So that's the thing. Hey, I'm being objective here. I'm not saying it was all better. This is an example of something that was worse.
Yeah, having said that, if you had to make the trade-off, Luke, let's be honest, Would you tolerate?
would I get
would you
AIDS?
tolerate a lot? Would you
Would I
put
get
up with some
AIDS?
AIDS just so you can own a house?
Would I get AIDS for cheaper fast food and fuel and to be, I don't know. Let me get back to you on that one. Yeah.
The age-old question.
Right. Okay. So eventually Vicky's HIV test comes back negative, and Sammy comes out to his parents, and he even starts dating. And the two manage to resume their lives. Yeah, that's the thing. Actually, let's check our privilege for a second, because we have been talking as two straight white males. Males is also important, indeed, about how much better things were in the 90s compared to today. What if you were gay? You'd probably prefer to live nowadays because your lifestyle, and that is the word that was used back in the day.
Lifestyle choices. I think that's important to stress.
Your lifestyle choices
yes.
are more acceptable now. Also, I imagine racism isn't as bad as it was in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Of course, the early 90s was a turbulent time for race relations in America. Of course, Rodney King and all of that. Obviously, George Floyd happened recently, but I think things probably are better. I would hope they're better.
Having said that, I think things were getting significantly better in the 90s for the whole gay thing. That's when, I feel like, they still weren't 100% with it, but gay people, I think gay people were allowed to be fun in the 90s.
Yeah, things got better, but then there was a backlash again in the 2000s. It was a bumpy road, and even today, you have people accusing, gay people of being like predators. Should school teachers be gay? That kind of.
Yeah. What about that "Don't Say Gay" bill? You ever heard of that?
Well, that got removed again in 2012. That was taken out from the U.S. Army. So yeah, again, things have got better. So yeah, we do need to check our privilege. But the thing is that Winona Ryder is white and straight, as is a friend, as is Troy, as is Ben Stiller. So yeah, you
can't just lean on the gays for your for your pity party.
Yes, exactly. And of course sexism was probably worse back in the day as well. But yeah, we don't really see examples of that in this movie. And this was written by a woman, so maybe it wasn't that bad.
Also, you got to bear in mind that for women, then they had the Spice Girls, so basically it was the best time to be a woman because of girl power.
Good point. Yeah, that came a bit later. Yeah. Also, I just wrote in my notes about Vicky and Sammy. Who cares about these characters? Nobody. Which I don't really remember writing, but it seems a bit harsh. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Sammy's kind of fun. He does look a little bit like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, I was thinking that, honestly. Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, that's off-putting.
Well, gay people have a look apparently in the early 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was that's how he got them. That was his strategy.
The Jeffrey Dahmer look. So, after an impulsive act of retribution against her boss, of course, Lelena loses her job. Yeah. You can just casually lose your job by doing something incredibly,
Well, as Lester Burnham says, it's not like, oh, where'd my job go? I quit.
Yes. The whole movie is about how shitty Gen X have it, and I'm just thinking, you would never do something like that nowadays. Of course, it is a rather ridiculous scenario that ever happened, but yeah, again, the thing is, she tries to find a bunch of jobs in her field and can't. And again, that is not crazy. I guess it's the same as today, but it just makes me think even more wait, why would you just give up this job then? Again, it's an act of impulse which only someone from Gen X could justify. Because again, she doesn't even have it that bad, honestly. The fucking old guy who's a bit mean to you doesn't want to play your, documentary, which again, it doesn't even fit with the fucking show he's doing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Yeah. It's this weird kind of artsy, boring thing, and he's doing some kind of family friendly morning show or something.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Don't be surprised if it gets rejected, and she just seems oh, fuck this guy. Again, the entitlement is off the fucking scale. Yeah, she basically this part of the movie shows she's becoming more like her dad, or she's adopting her dad's worldview. She said, "Oh yeah, it's all about having a work ethic. You gotta." What did she say to Troy? You're on a one-way ticket to Loserville, I think.
Yeah. So she calls him out.
Yeah, in a very,
quite rightly.
Yeah, in a very boomer way, would you say? Yeah,
I would say a boomer way. I would say that the real boom was when she blew him the fuck out.
Okay, right.
Yeah. She's cantankerous.
Okay, yeah, but that's the thing. She basically adopts these boomer positions because she goes to a fast food restaurant, which I like. I get Winona Ryder, by the way, she is I don't want to say attractive, but she.
No, you don't want people to think you're gay.
Wait, wouldn't it be the opposite?
You don't want people to think you're straight.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry,
because
I forgot.
Yeah, because she's she's not conventionally what you would think attractive would be, but she's I'm just seeing her in this fast food restaurant, and it's like, oh yeah, you should be a model. Like,
yeah, well, have you seen that meme that's like the whole like the model, and then it's like the girl who works as a cashier at McDonald's, and she's way more attractive. Yeah,
maybe that's what she could have become. Yeah, it's just like she she obviously she's an actress, and like Ethan Hawke as well. He's like he's like I think more of a stereotype of what like conventionally attractive is, and it's like he could be a model. Yeah, Ben Stiller probably not. No, the ears are too big.
Yes,
but but yeah, those two absolutely they could. Yeah. Anyway, no, I was just thinking that it's like they're typical Gen X. Apart from the fact that they are more attractive than like 90% of people out there. I guess of course that's why they're actors. But that's the thing. If you're gonna make a slice of life movie, about all these downtrodden normal Gen Xers, then I don't know. I think it was maybe a bit off-putting that the level of good lookingness of the actors.
Yeah, good lookingification.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good term. So basically, Ethan Hawke obviously responds to Lelena, in a very stereotypical way. It's like, oh no, I'm not selling out because that's the one thing that matters to me the most. And he's just like the ultimate slacker. The thing is, I've got one complaint about this character in terms of him being a stereotype. Okay. I don't think he does any drugs in this movie.
Yeah, that's you're right. Yeah. Yeah,
surely he would. And the thing is, he really likes cigarettes and coffee. Which is again very unhealthy. By the way, just constantly like
I was thinking that like they're all just smoking 24/7.
Yeah, again because like healthcare's so cheap,
Yeah.
So who cares? But no, that's the thing. Of course, healthcare in this country is free, but it's just
bad. It's
a lot worse though than it was back in the 90s. Yeah. Well, at least back in the early 2000s, But anyway, again, I'm expecting this character to do drugs in this movie, but the only drugs he does is, is caffeine and some beer now and then. He keeps it very illegal. And I was like, why was that the case? Surely he'd be like, fucking a stoner.
I can see what you're saying about it being confusing. I mean, it wasn't that confusing because I was like, well, like some people, like I feel like in a way, doing drugs, I haven't said, if you're a stoner, you'll do drugs, but I feel like in some sense doing drugs has to be kind of stressful. Like I feel like
you would say that.
I would say that because I'm a cool dude.
Well, it's no different than having alcohol. And alcohol.
I suppose you're right. Yeah, like alcohol. Like because I'm thinking about like after effects and things like that.
When I say drugs, I of course mean illegal substances like marijuana. Yeah. There's some lines in the movie where they reference Diet Cokes, like or Coke, and I think they mean Coca-Cola. But I was thinking, wait, is this? Are they finally going to get into the drugs here? No, that didn't happen. Anyway, so Lala's relationship with Michael dissolves after he helps her sell the documentary to his network.
Wow, what a terrible, terrible guy helping her sell a documentary. What a twat.
And she got paid as well.
I know.
Oh, this is so funny, man. Only to let them edit it into a stylized montage that compromises her artistic vision. Like, okay.
Wow, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone.
Are you fucking kidding me, is what I wrote. This girl is the luckiest. Like, her shitty documentary about her shitty friends.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how shit her documentary
is. Yeah. Like, that's the thing.
It doesn't even look it doesn't
entitlement.
Look good. It does not look good. Like, it just looks like random observations from, like, 4 nobodies.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because, like, everyone talks about, like, YouTube nowadays and, like, influencers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like, this is way worse because if anything, like, one, it's more effort, which makes it even more self-obsessed. Like, if someone wants to, record themselves, like, going on holiday or, like, doing something, just hanging out, or just record a goofy video with their friends and upload it to YouTube.
Or record a goofy podcast, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. A goofy podcast. Then that's, like, fun. Or, like, at least it makes sense because it's, like, easy. So you can be like, okay, they just casually did it. It's not like they're just, like, mental psychos.
There is not much effort that goes into this.
But if someone, like, made, like, some kind of faux artsy documentary about their friends just being so crazy and interesting, just talking about their lives, man, and they were like, this is my artistic vision and it needs to be seen by people, I would kill them.
Yeah, I'm just imagining like my friends like interviewing them about life and capturing it would just be like the worst thing ever. Like most people aren't, I would say, that interesting. Would you say that's the case?
I think that is a fair thing to say. I feel like people are sometimes interesting. Like, I think it depends on the context, right? Because people can be interesting when you're talking to them and when you're kind of taking them as they are. But then it's like how like some people are funny if you're just having like a casual conversation, but you wouldn't then think they could just go to like Live at the Apollo and just kill with a solid 10 minutes of stand-up, because there's a difference between, you know, being funny and casual conversation. I think it's the same thing, you know, being funny, like, you just meet someone on the street, like, oh, that's an interesting person. That's a reasonable thing to think. But you wouldn't then be like, oh, I'm going to make a documentary about that person. That's the line that needs to be drawn.
Yeah, let's hear some observations about life from a fucking manager at the Gap. Yeah,
Yes.
no, that'll... Oh, wow, what a piece of cinema. Oh, wow, everyone apparently thinks this is the best documentary ever.
Yeah, like, that guy's, like, literally arguing with his boss about it, like, no, man, we need this, dude.
We need to hear what Sammy has to say about being gay. You know, we need to hear that. We need to hear about fucking Troy.
Yeah.
Just
smoking cigarettes and coffee.
Yeah, and philosophizing like he does, like every fucking stoner does. No, that's great TV. We need that on our network. Yeah, you know what? That old guy, he's the real hero of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He is. I want to see a documentary about him and how he came to be successful. He probably fought in World War II, defeating Hitler.
Exactly. And so what if he wants to make, you know, a non-cynical, happy daytime talk show? You know, what's wrong with that? You know, it's not good enough for Winona Ryder and her artsy documentary. You know, about how
it's not just artsy; it's fartsy as well. And I think that's something that we shouldn't ignore.
About how everybody's parents get divorced and how
get
that's
AIDS
awful.
And die.
Yeah, and how people get AIDS and die, and just let people have fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. The point is, yes,
I liked Green Book.
That's the thing. We're like mocking like a central point of this movie, you know, a plot line, but it's fun to mock. Honestly, like it's that validating again that, you know, these are the complaints that Gen X had. Oh yeah, we have it so much worse. You know, think about it. Right, this documentary, yes, it is edited significantly by the looks of things, but again, this is why Gen X are the worst. You have to start somewhere, okay? And this will lead to more opportunities, right?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Then eventually you can make what you want and you can have your own artistic vision. You will eventually get that. Maybe it'll always be slightly compromised, but you can get a decent chunk of the way there. And yeah, it's just the entitlement to want that right out of the gate while you're unemployed.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, like, she doesn't want to commercialize it. You know, that's what she says. You know, remember that scene in the hotel room when she says that? And the filmmakers, I think, are clever enough to have her drink a big, like, the drink is called like a big gulp.
Yeah.
While she's saying this, to show her naivete.
Yes.
And
what a nerd she is.
So it's kind of a meta joke in the movie, and I like that to some extent, but the fact that this mentality existed and was prevalent in the first place is awful, and the fact that in this movie it is viewed as a legitimate point of view, like she has a legitimate gripe. Maybe the movie's message is, oh, you have to do that, you know, come on, live in the real world, but it's not treated with the mockery that it should.
Yeah, well, I see, like, that's the thing, like, you know, obviously one of the things that needs to be mentioned is that I liked Ben Stiller's character, and like I expected him to be like okay, so you know how I guess I'll start laying the seeds, which you probably knew this was what the seeds were of the whole I completely misinterpreted the film. I thought genuinely, and you know, this is you know, you just mentioned naivete. Well, here's a big one. I thought that Ben Stiller was going to be instrumental in her coming of age, and like she was going to realize in some sense that he was right, or she was going to learn that compromising is a reasonable thing to do. Like, I thought he was going to say,
fucking moron.
I know, yeah. I thought he was going to say, like, hey, you know, sure, it's not your artistic vision, but, you know, like, if you genuinely say that you don't want to, like, have the success, I basically make the obvious point of, you know, this is a big thing, and, like, you know, you've got to kind of compromise sometimes because that's, like, reality. And, like, that would basically be where he's coming from. Like, essentially just, he's the realist. He's not, like, a bad guy or a cynic. He's just, like, realistic.
Nope.
And, like, she would realize... but no, yeah.
No. Oh, you've compromised my artistic vision by kickstarting my career. Now I'm going to sleep with my ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, like, 30 minutes later. That's what I'm...
Yeah.
Right, again, so obviously...
Yeah, this is true. You know, like, the meme about, like, if you... What is it? Like, if you don't... if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. That's what this feels like. It's like her best is being like a pretentious, like self-indulgent filmmaker, and her worst is literally sleeping with her ex the second you annoy her about anything.
So I'm like how you're kind of enjoying, or from what it seems, you're enjoying what I have been doing watching this movie, which is like raging at it. What was that phrase you used?
I can't remember what phrase I used.
You know, when you enjoy raging at something.
Oh, vindication?
No, it's like rage bait or something.
Oh yeah, rage bait. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that was it. All right. So obviously at the end, you know, Lelena and Troy sleep together, and then obviously there's a confrontation, and then he goes to his father's funeral in Chicago. While we do not see what happens to Michael, During the credits, there is an abrupt break where two characters. I don't know if you saw this.
I sometimes, I didn't realize pre-Marvel they had this, so I just skipped off it after the credits.
Elena and Roy, who are obvious parodies of Lelena and Troy, have an argument about their relationship. As the show's credits roll, Michael's name is revealed as the creator, implying that he has turned the relationship between Lelana and Troy into the subject of a news show on his network.
Oh.
And yeah, that's the thing. Like, obviously, the creator of this, what she called Childress, kind of has done the same, obviously. Helen Childress, of course. She's kind of done the same with this movie because, of course, this was based on her like friends and growing up, in the early 90s. But the thing is, like, as long as it's like her artistic vision, it's kind of not the same almost. She put herself in this situation. Or should I be more like Winona? Sorry, she was Winona Ryder. Should I be more like Ben Stiller? Or the philosophy of Ben Stiller, or the philosophy of Troy? And I guess she was like, no, I'm going to be like Troy. And my artistic vision isn't going to be compromised. And yeah, of course, well, it worked for her. She made a successful movie. So maybe that's message. The fact that, hey, it got made. Well, there you go. You should reject what Ben Stiller's trying to do. I don't know. Maybe there's a meta element to that. But yeah, also there's the joke at the end of like, oh yeah, everything eventually gets commercialized and sold. Yes. So there's no getting away from that. Even though Gen X try to avoid doing that. And maybe that's the overall point, the futility of that philosophy. But the movie doesn't actually reject that philosophy as you and I kind of agree it should. It just says that philosophy is kind of pointless, which is a different thing, Yeah, let's conclude, Michael. You go first.
Yeah, so like I say, I think like this movie, it starts off kind of promising with the assumption being that it's going to be about this kind of issue of selling out versus, your artistic vision, blah, blah, blah. We kind of already covered that. But then for me, there's kind of two things. The first thing, which you'll probably cover more, so I'll kind of leave that to you mostly, but obviously the fact that they're so naive and petulant. And then the other thing is that genuinely, I have never felt more, like I said at the beginning, kind of whiplash in terms of realizing, because I was just watching this again, probably because I knew it was the 90s and I thought like, come on, it's not so bad. I was assuming this would be like a coming of age movie where it would be about becoming a bit more mature and realistic. And when I realized, oh wait, no, the conclusion of the movie is actually that it's this great, empowering, romantic thing to sleep with and, I guess continue a relationship with this complete slacker who does nothing. Like, that was crazy to me. I was actually open-mouthed at the end of this movie. But like you've kind of already hinted at, it makes it a very difficult movie to rate. I think I'm going to give it a middling 6. I was going to say a low 6, but I think what elevates it slightly is I do think that the kind of banter between the characters and, the kind of like the film feels quite real, and I'll give it credit for that. Yeah, it's a real film about terrible people.
Well, I wouldn't say they're terrible. And I wouldn't say it feels that real. It feels kind of real. Maybe as close to real as you can get while also kind of generalizing the experience of Gen X. But they're not terrible. They're just like annoying. And I think later in life perhaps they did become terrible. That's my theory on Gen X. But overall, I think this is a 7 out of 10 movie because again, like you may say it's hard to rate, Michael, but it's easy to rage at. Thank you for laughing. Yeah, so there you go. I think that helps because we have kind of torn this movie apart somewhat, but again, it's this, you can rate however you like, of course, when we do
like that's the thing, like you say, sorry, I'm just interrupting you, but like the fact is, like, we've never complained so much about a movie that we've had overall positive feelings of, but the thing is, it's kind of like the things we're complaining about aren't technical faults in the filmmaking or anything like that. It's just that the message of the film is so funny, but it does a kind of good job at communicating the message.
And also, I was going to say, it's also a vindication of my belief, certainly, of how bad the modern world is for people who are in their 20s compared to previous generations in the Western world. And I'm looking at these characters complaining about, I'm right. And so thank you for vindicating me, Reality Bites. Thank you for doing that. So there you go. So it's a movie I can enjoy watching while raging at. And there we have it. That's that's something interesting right there. It's unique. We've been selecting and reflecting on Reality Bites. God, I wish I could be a Gen X slacker, but no, I'll have to be a depressed Zoomer instead, or millennial, or whatever for the rest of the time. Join us for Godzilla Kong next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.